Hey guys, I'm Izia and welcome to another episode. Today we'll be getting ourselves into orbit. I'll show you some hints and tips as with mission acceptance, and also how to create assemblies for later use for other rockets you may want to create. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at some missions. Between this and the last episode, I've been doing a couple missions just to get some more money and some more science that we can use. And I just want to show you a couple of missions that you may want to stay away from. So we've got this one here, is test the MK16 parachute in flight over kerbin. Now you'll notice that you need to get up to 18,500 meters, between 27,000 altitude, just to complete this one. And you need to do it at 170 to 370 meters. Now the cheap rockets essentially will go faster than this. You can limit their thrusts and hence get a longer burn out of them, but you'll take notice that you're only going to get 1,500, and the rockets are going to cost you like 350 for just one. So you're going to need at least two. You're probably going to need three, and if you fail at this, you're going to lose, roughly this amount of money in just trying to attempt it. And because it's not giving you any science, it's just giving you money and reputation, it's probably not the best one to go for. Now, if we look at something like Orbit Kerbin, where we're going to get 30 science out of it, because science is very important, we're also going to get 60,000, which is a fair bit of money. It is going to take a little bit of money to get into orbit, but not anywhere near 60,000. It's sometimes the 3-star missions are actually the hardest ones to do, but sometimes they're much better than doing this. The test separation one, we'll check that one out. 6,900 to 1,100. So you got a big area gap that you can get into. 440 to 640. So you might be able to do this with one rocket. So this one might be worth doing. You may not want to do these missions if you're not confident enough in rocket design or anything like that. These will probably only make you lose money and other resources. So let's check this one out. 6,000, so it's more, probably not the best one to go. You're only going to get 500 for that one. This one, the rocket max is going to be quite big. It's actually quite heavy, and it's going to take a lot of power to get it up to 24,000 meters really. This one, overflight, 9,600. No, not really. So, but anyway, today we're going to escape the atmosphere and do the orbit. Due to the fact, because when we do the orbit, we're going to be outside the atmosphere anyway, so it's going to be a win-win. So we're going to grab that one, and we're going to grab the orbit one. And before we go to make our rockets, we're going to need to buy a little bit more science. So last episode we got the parachute stuff with the smaller engine and the landing gears and the parachute. And this time we're going to just grab the stability, because we primarily want the radial decoupler, one that lets us essentially push objects off the side of our ship. So we'll grab that. I think that's about all we can. We've got plenty more science, but we don't need it at the moment. So actually, what we should do is we should grab this one as well, because it gives us our science junior. And as you know, science is always important. So we can add one of these to our rocket while we're doing the orbit and escaping the atmosphere mission to grab more science. So every single chance you get to grab some science, it's a good time to do it. Plus we also get battery packs, which is neat. Okay, so first thing you want to do with building a rocket is, instead of building a rocket in the thinking of designing it from what power source do I need to get off the ground, ideally what you want to be designing is what kind of power source do I need to get the capsule one back into kerbin, so basically out of orbit. And then you want to think about what kind of power source do I need to essentially keep our spacecraft in orbit or get to an orbit. And then after that, think about what you need to actually get it off into orbit. So basically it's thinking it backwards. So it's design rockets from top to bottom, not bottom to top. So we've got the command pod, and obviously we need to think top from bottom. So how are we going to make this rocket survive? So we're going to need a parachute, of course. We're going to need some kind of power source to let it get back into orbit. So we're just going to use a medium-sized fuel tank. That should be good enough. And we're going to use the the low powered liquid fuel engine. And one thing else, you remember how I said that whatever survives, you get money back. So it's always a good idea to try and think about what we're bringing back and will it all survive. So we're going to give some landing gears to just this section, because this is the part that's going to be returning back to Earth. It can go there. Alright, okay, so this part here is essentially our bring back to Earth. Okay, so next part we want to do is the section where we will be attaining orbit. So we're going to separate that section off. We're going to break this so these ones aren't connected. So we don't want to go off and the parachute at the same time. Okay, so now we need fuel for essentially an orbit burn. Now I tend to go with 3 of these large fuel tanks. You can probably go with 4 if you want to. And I'm going to use a larger thrust engine for this. And we don't want this to go off at the same time as that, because that's essentially separating. So we're going to need a separate stage. Okay. And now we're going to use our radial decouplers. And we're not going to put one right there. We're going to put it midway up. Right there. And we're going to use the cheapo solid fuel boosters to get us places. So there. I'm going to separate these things so that there's more stages, just to make things a little bit more simpler. Okay, and then I'm going to do another radial one just below it, and I'm going to chuck in some more solid fuel boosters like that. And I'm going to separate this so they don't go off at the same time. They could go at the same time. Essentially, these would break away. These would just start up straight away. I know, it's just how I like designing my motors. That needs to separate too. Okay, so we've got these. Oh, they're in the wrong order. Okay, these need to go off first. These, then not them. As you can see, when I mouse over these ones, you can see on the rocket the parts actually highlight. So what I'm trying to get is these ones to go, and then I need the locking mechanisms here, the vectors to go. So not these ones, they need to go there. So these ones go, we finish them, they break off. These ones start up, they break off. We don't need that part there anymore. And then it's that main rocket. Now as you can see, the rocket itself is sitting on this engine. So just to make sure that the engine doesn't break, we're going to put some stacked decouplers on the bottoms of our rockets. So they need to go actually in that one. Minimize that, and we're going to put these little girders just below to support the whole rocket up. So when we press the spacebar on the first launch, the engines will turn on. They'll also separate at the same time, meaning this engine won't be sitting on it. So hopefully that will be enough to get in space, and hopefully I don't have to re-record this episode. So let's go for it. Actually, if I got wings, I'm just gonna put some winglets on the side of this as well, just so we can have a little bit more stabilization. Okay, that should be enough. And oh yes, as always, try and do some science. So I'm gonna chuck a science module in there too. Hopefully bring that back to space. Oh there. Bring that back to Earth. And we're gonna get some mysterious goo as well in there. Always try and make your ships symmetrical. If you don't, the drag of one side will start steering the rocket. So that looks about right. That should survive. Yes, yes. And hopefully this doesn't explode and make you look an idiot. And just before we go, we're going to look at the assembly area. So essentially what you want to do with assembly is you want to drag off large sections of your rocket into the assembly zone so that large section can be reused. So this one here, which is what you might want to consider the main drive, the one that gets us into orbit. We want to reuse that later on other ships, so we're just going to drag that in there. and I'm going to put that as I'm going to call it Orbit Main Drive, and I'm just going to say light because it's it's not getting heavier items in the orbit. So let's go save, and then what I'm going to do is I can just click on it again and reuse it again over and over again. Okay, let's go. Hopefully this gets in the works. Okay, let's get this thing into space. You may have noticed I've changed the position of the wings because we were sort of power steering from the bottom part of the rocket, so I'll put these wings up here just to counteract some of the bottom steer as well. So, okay, we seem to be going pretty good. Going fairly slow, but we are making progress. Like I said, if you go too fast, the bottom of the rocket sort of power steers. It's sort of like oversteer in a car. Essentially, the power directs which way you're going rather than the torque, which is the SAS module, and of course the wings for the lift. Okay, we're almost out of the first stage. We're going to the next stage. Should we pick up a little bit of speed because we've lost the weight of those rockets. You sort of do want to stay under 200 millimeters per second for these types of rockets. Obviously, if you've got a much larger rocket, hell, go as fast as you want, really. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to stay on this trajectory, essentially straight up until we get it to about 18,000 meters, and then that's when we'll be changing our course to the right for about a 45-degree angle. We're going to be turning in the same direction as the Earth, which gives us a slight efficiency bonus when it comes to getting into orbit. So we're in the slightly, it's not as thick atmosphere, it still gives us drag, and we're going to power up to full speed for the liquid fueled engine. And we're already past 18, so I should have started turning already, but that's not too much an issue. I'm going to go about 45 degrees. Now, actually, if you were a robot, the most efficient way of getting up is by actually slowly rotating into orbit. But since we're not doing that, we're going to have to go with the 45 degrees method. I'm going to go to the orbit map. We're going to see our axis. There's more words. I swear they make games so I can't pronounce stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up this so we can decelerate at the right point. We want to decelerate when the AP reaches about 100,000. Okay, that's about it. And that means we'll essentially coast up towards the AP. We're going to right click, add a maneuver. We're going to drag this out. So the yellow is our proposed spot, and we're going to get PEs 92,000. I'm going to just do a little bit more. So we go, okay, a little bit more, and a little bit more. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to this mode. We're going to start turning, so our little marker there goes over to the maneuver planet area, which should be there, almost a little bit more. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to speed up just a tiny bit, just so we wait until the node down here gets closer to -0, and that's when we do our burn. Okay, and then doesn't matter if we're a little bit off. So we're going to burn away, and as you can see, this speed marker here, we essentially want to increase our speed by 1,300 meters a second to essentially achieve a speed that will allow us to keep this orbit. And looks like we're going to probably make that. If not, we can probably go into our second engine just a tiny bit. But I'd say we're going to make it quite easy. Okay, let's just look at our mission. So essentially we've escaped the atmosphere already, and we'll get orbit soon. As you can see how the camera just flipped there for a second. A little bit more. Expand that. But yeah. Okay, we've achieved orbit. You notice that the camera sort of moved a little bit. That was us getting into orbit. We go onto the map. Okay, we've gone a little bit too far, but that's okay. So, first of all, what we want to do is, one, we're going to get rid of that maneuver. We don't need it anymore. We're going to do some science while we're up here. So first of all is the goo. And we'll keep that. And we'll go to Science Junior. We'll keep that. We'll keep that. And I think what we'll do is we'll just, let's get this ship a little bit pointing up vertical, because we're going to do an EVA soon. And this is going to be easier for us to get back into the ship if we drift off a little bit. Okay, a little bit more. Our little friend Jebediah will probably survive this, but it's always a good idea to press F5 just before you attempt to do this stuff, because sometimes they don't grab on, sometimes they drift off, and then you sort of have to, hopefully you can use the RCS system that they've got in their jetpacks to essentially get back. So press F5, I'll do it again. So it's quick saving. I'm going to tell Jebediah to do an EVA. I'm going to be ready to press F for grab. And he's grabbed on as he should have. Okay, I'm going to press EVA report, get him to do that. What a champion. And now we've done that, we're going to get him to get back in, because obviously it's unsafe. Now there's probably not enough fuel in there in that section, so we're just going to dump it. Okay, and now to get back into orbit, the best way of doing it is by reversing course. So if we are traveling in this direction, let's get the ship going in the right direction. It's always best to essentially see that little mark there. It looks like a one up, one to the bottom left, one to the bottom right. That's essentially like the reverse course of our orbit. And what we want to do is we want to go in that direction to slow down our orbit speed, because it's the speed that keeps us in orbit. So we want to decrease that, but there are better times to do it. So the most efficient time to do it is actually on either the Parapsis or the Apois. Generally, if you have a larger APO out here, I'll just show you. As you can see, if I make that maneuver there, it will take 61 milliseconds to essentially get to the atmosphere. Where if I was to do it from the Parapsis and do the opposite direction, as you can see, it takes a much larger power to do it. So it's always good to do it from the furthest point. So the Aopus, blah. Okay, so that's good enough. And we can probably just finagle with the speed as we get closer to the Earth, just so we can try and get onto land, because water isn't exactly the best place to land if you've got landing struts. So okay, let's just go to spaceship mode, head over to the blue marker, because as you can see, if we're doing it from the other side of the world, the point where we're trying to point to is actually different. So we're just going to speed up. So it's minus 20 minutes. We're on the dark side. Okay, almost there. That's part of our rocket that we detached. And we get closer to it. Five minutes. Speed up a little bit more. we could probably do it now because we've got enough fuel to make mistakes. But we'll just get a little bit closer. Okay, that's enough. We're going to press space to get into our first stage. But the engines are down, so let's go in our orbit map just so we can see this in action. Now we've got 27 seconds left to go. We're pretty much on it, so let's do it now anyway. So we're going to increase the speed. As you can see, I'm not using that much power. As you can see, the blue line marker is going down, and we're essentially going to go into orbit. So let's speed it up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to come on probably the daytime. Okay, which way is the Earth turning? It's turning that way, I think. Speed up just to see which way it's turning. Okay, it's turning away from us, so hopefully we can land on this continent. As you can see, there's a desert there, so hopefully we'll try and get the desert, because this is a different biome, and of course different biomes you get different science, so which is always what we want. Okay, hopefully I've got this perfect actually. I'd say I have actually. Okay, I'm going to slow it down because we're probably getting close to the atmosphere. Yes, I am. Okay, I'm going to press click that module and press G to get landing gear out. Okay, press the space bar to get the parachute to come out, and we should land. And let's see if we can just slow our turn down so we land definitely in the desert. And click there to get rid of that. See, as you can see, the ocean's coming up and I don't want to land in the ocean. Oh, that's what we can do. We're gonna hopefully just land in the desert. Let's just speed it up a little bit. Take the stabilization off so we sort of swing towards the Earth. I'm gonna go to normal speed when we get closer to the parachute opening time so we don't damage the parachute. And always remember that sometimes the land is above the water level, so sometimes the land isn't at 0 meters, it's actually above it. As you can see, the parachute opened up at 1200 this time rather than 500, because the ground is roughly, 700 meters or so higher than the water. So that's something you have to be prepared for. Speed it up to the ground. And press space when we get closer. Should almost be there. Okay, that was just that engine that we landed on. That's fine, we don't need that. Okay, so I'm gonna lower our struts a little bit so he hasn't got that far to fall. Can you do a crew report? So we're in the Kerbin's desert, so I'll keep that. It's more science. You can do an EVA. And also we're above the desert, so that's more science. So we're flying over Kerbin's desert. Keep that report. And we're going to press space, so he's going to drop a little bit and ragdoll a bit, and he's okay. He's an awesome. Okay, now finally do that EVA report for standing on the desert. Well, actually, we probably should have entered that into the ship first. I'm not going to be able to do it, that's a mistake. I probably should have put the EVA report stored into the capital first. It's alright, I'll come back and do that later. Take surface sample. Yep, and what we're going to do now is finally recover the vessel. By means recover Jebediah because he's separated from the vessel. Okay, so we got some signs from that. We go to the station. Oh, what's it called? I can't remember. Anyway, we can see that the spaceship's still out there. So we're going to click on it, that one there, and tell it to recover. Because there's science data still in it, as you can see. Plenty. And of course we got money back from it as well. And let's see. Okay, so now we've got, how much? We've got 100... No, what's that? Yeah, 140,000. Yeah, so 140,000 money, and we've got 133 science. So it's pretty good for getting into orbit, getting out of the atmosphere, collecting some science, doing the EV report, and coming back safely. So, if you've got any comments, questions, let me know. If you could, like the video, it helps everything go along. And until next time, guys.
Ready, aim, fire.